Hello. I have a book discussion here today, and I thought what better day to do this book than on World Tuberculosis Day. Um, so, if you can guess, the book is Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. Um, yeah, so, this is something I've had family members, despite living in the US, I've had members infected with TB. And so it's affected me. Thankfully, they got through it with a lot of, drug therapy and medication and, the all the benefits of being from a wealthier country. However, obviously that's not the case for a lot of people around the world, and that's basically what this book is about. The fact that it's still to this day the most deadly, contagious, infectious illness in the world, with over 1 million people dying every year. So it's really, as you might guess by the title, everything is tuberculosis. This book is about tuberculosis, but it's about a lot more than just that. And that's what I'm going to be discussing here today. So, what you learn without even getting through a few chapters is basically the importance in this book of the idea of perspective. And as we talked about in earlier videos with Nietzsche, Nietzsche thinks there are as many perspectives as there are beings. So animals, plants, people, beings have perspectives ultimately. This book kind of takes that to another level, in my opinion, and it's basically implies, whether it doesn't say outright, but it implies that there are as many perspectives as entities. Just anything that exists, you can take its perspective and shine it on the world and try to explain things from that point of view. And that's what this book sets out to do from the point of view of an infectious illness. So I think ultimately what's so good about this book is that it combines narrative and exposition of our deadliest infection. So it's equal parts moving narrative and thoroughgoing exposition. And that's what makes it a kind of, how should I put it? I mean, it's a little bit experimental in some ways, because it takes the point, like I said before, it takes the point of view of an illness. Anyways, so this book is implicitly, though perhaps not explicitly, political. This is something that I think a lot of American authors struggle with, is like they don't want to be labeled as being outrightly political in their writing, unless they're like, political philosophers. That's literally all they do. That's their profession. When you become a famous writer as a novelist or a historian or a nonfiction writer, when you put a political perspective in your work, you get criticized. And I think this is due to the fact that we don't want to be seen as outright political in the United States. It seems almost taboo for some people. Like, oh, let's just leave that out of the conversation. Let's talk about something else. Let's move on. Let's sweep it under the rug, you know? The reason this is implicitly political rather than explicitly is because he makes very obvious, overtures throughout the book of how if we had the willpower to want to eradicate this illness, tuberculosis, all around the world, we could have done it by now. We've known how to cure it basically for decades, since the 50s, 60s, 70s at the latest. And one might say, oh, but those drugs are expensive. What's keeping them expensive? Basically, is what he would respond, what John Green would respond as. What is keeping those drugs out of the reach of um, poorer countries around the world. I- Is it greed? Is it malice? Is it intention to want to let this illness ravage the poorest among us around the world? Or is it just a systemic failure, something bigger, systemic, that we can't get bogged down? We get bogged down into the specifics of is it this or that, but it's actually bigger than it's. We have to think more bigger picture. So he really makes that very clear that by this many decades we've had this solution to this illness. We should have solved it by now. There's no reason why more than 1 million people should be dying of this every year around the world. So, like I said, oftentimes if you're infected with TB and you are in the United States or Western Europe, and you go up to someone and you say, "I have TB," like latent TB, they'll be surprised because it's almost eradicated in these wealthier countries. Again, it's political. It's who gets what and why. Um, who gets what and why is what politics is ultimately all about. Uh, so another thing to noteworthy thing is that the book kind of follows this young man, I guess I would call him Henry Ryder, in Sierra Leone, who John Green meets in Sierra Leone, and he leaves such an impression and impact on him that he wants to follow his story all the way through to where he's now healthy, recovered from TB, even though many times his doctors were saying it was drug resistant, it was difficult to find the drugs he needed. He was losing weight, he seemed very frail, sick, lung damage, etc. And he finally, at the end, he gets through it. So spoiler alert, sorry for if you wanted to read this yourself. But it follows his journey and his amazingly supportive mother, and how he goes from nearly dying of this illness to flourishing, going back to school, starting a YouTube channel, which he shouts out near the end of the book, and he tells people to want who are interested to subscribe to him and follow his journey on his YouTube channel. Uh, yeah, overall, I would say with this book, if you are a big fan of John Green, I would say definitely pick it up, read it yourself. It's a interesting read. It's a different kind of book. If you don't know much about John Green, first of all, are you living under a rock? I'm just kidding, but Um, if you don't know much about him or you haven't read him before, and you aren't really interested in the topic of tuberculosis, you have no interest whatsoever, then you might not like it. It's very possible. I still think it's an engaging read. He writes very well. If you're interested in tuberculosis and don't know who John Green is, I think definitely read it. Um, it's it's an interesting experience to go through reading this book. Thank you for this book, John Green. It's World Tuberculosis Day. I hope this gets out to a lot of people, raise awareness for the illness, the fact that although we might think in this country, in the United States, that this is over and it doesn't exist anymore, basically for us, it obviously does exist for a lot of people all around the world. And the reasons for that are disheartening, to say the least, if not angering, at worst. Um, so yeah, I think it's a worthwhile read. It's not that long. It's a kind of it's not very small type either. It's maybe like 200 pages and reasonably readable uh, size of the font. So yeah, check it out if you're interested. Um, you know, thank you for the book, John. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.